That is one good song. That is one good song. I don't know if you guys enjoyed that song that was just playing, but that is a. How are you guys doing today? I am Ameera with the Lapeef Network, back again. I want to speak to you all about a few things, but really quickly, I just want to acknowledge the people who are coming in. If I'm looking down, it's because I have the chat on down here. So I want to say thank you, Lapeef. I want to say welcome, Wealthy. Welcome, Young, 8411. Hi, Eight Ways. Hi, Morty. Hi, Samir. I see a few people that I know here. Hi, Burning Coal. Hi, Tom and Hentai and Larry, of course. And hi, Ezreal. I hope I said that name right. So, right, the topic today is about submission because, of course, we talk about this all the time on the Lapeef Network, and I apply that in my everyday. And in my everyday life, this is how I live. So I figured I'd speak about it just because I never noticed how submissive I was until we started speaking about it. And that doesn't mean that I'm a pushover. It doesn't mean that I'm a slave. But I want to define submission. What is submission in the dictionary? What does it mean? And do we tend to agree with that living out through our relationships? Because a lot of times when you hear the definition of submission, it doesn't have to do with relationships and women, how we treat men, but it usually has to do with, I hate to say it, it's more like master and worker type of relationship. So I want to bring up the definition of submission right now. Please hold while I transfer your call. Okay, submission is, well, there's two definitions. The first one is the act of accepting or yielding to a superior force or to the will of authority of another person. The second definition is the action of presenting a proposal, application, or other document. So that's like submitting paperwork. So that's nothing the same. Right. So let's read it again. The action or fact of accepting or yielding to a superior force or to the will of authority or the will or authority of another person. What does it mean, yielding to the authority of another person? Does that mean that that person is, how can I say? Does that mean that that person is better than you? Does that mean that you are nothing because you are yielding? Does it mean that we are lesser than because we yield or we know when to pull back. Someone once said that the act of a person's power rests in what they do not do, not what they do. So having control over yourself and knowing that you can do a certain thing, but not doing it because you see a bigger picture in something. Seeing the bigger picture is the reason why you won't do certain things. Although you have the opportunity. Everyone has the opportunity to not submit. But the power rests in yielding and knowing when to apply those powers and when to not. I just lost my, hold on one second. I need to log back into this. 1 minute. Okay. So I want to give you guys a bit of a personal example, if you don't mind. In my life, I want to tell you what has happened in my life that it is a bit personal, but I think that we're mature enough to understand this. So I want you guys to hear this story with open ears and open mind and understand that I'm not in any trouble and I'm not in some kind of situation where it's, bad for me or something. I'm going to give you a personal story. When me and my husband first married, you have to understand I was very young. I was 23 years old. I mean, it's young in American terms, but in worldwide view, it's not that young to get married. When we first got married, because I was so young and I was kind of young-minded and I was never in this position before, I was kind of like rebellious too. I was kind of rebellious towards my husband too. Not like crazy or anything, but sometimes I didn't want to be told what to do or how to do it, or things like that happen. I had one time, God, I'm going to tell you guys a story. Okay. I had one time where I completely just lost it. And I think I was also on my period at the time, so I might have been a little bit emotional. But I had completely lost it and I was upset about something and I brought it up to my husband and he basically was trying to calm me down. He tried to calm me down and he tried to tell me like, it's okay, don't worry about it. And he wanted to brush it off until later. At that time, I didn't understand what that meant. I'm still 23. For me, everything needs to be spoken about right now. I need to know. So oh my God. So basically, he was trying to diffuse the situation, trying to calm things down and trying to move on, and I didn't want to. So I lost my cool that day. How my husband reacted. Now, some people might say, oh my God, that's abusive. Oh, 1 minute, let me move that. Some people say, oh, that's abusive or anything. My husband is not abusive. But that day, my husband gave me a firm slap across the cheek because of how I was acting. And just to check my behavior. Some people would say, oh, that's not right. He's abusive. Oh my God. No. My husband is not abusive at all. He does not harm me. He doesn't do anything to me to make me hurt. But my husband is older than me. You guys know he's over 10 years older than me. So him correcting me in that way, for some people it works, for some people it doesn't. He knew that it would work for me. So anyway, my husband gave me a firm slap across the cheek that day and basically sat me down and told me that this should not happen again. You don't behave this way. You don't keep pushing buttons if it's not necessary. I learned a valuable lesson that day. So I understood. So what I want to say about this is I'm not saying that it's everybody's job to do that, but between husband and wife, sometimes these things happen. And this is something I'm sharing with you if you're not married, or maybe you are and you go through things too. Some married couples have these issues where sometimes drastic measures are needed to correct the behavior or something like that. And this is where I had spoken to you all about things like domestic discipline and what to do if you know the limits. Like, I guess I think it was Lapeef and Anton who were talking about having a code word, something like pineapples or splitting bananas. I don't know, something like that. Split banana. Having a code word to say, stop, you're getting out of hand, you're getting out of order, this needs to come to an end. And not knowing the limit of your partner is something that a lot of married couples go through in the beginning of marriage. Not knowing when to stop or not knowing when your partner has had enough. So that's one thing that I had to learn early on in my marriage. And like I said, I learned a valuable lesson that day. So my thing is this: why did it come to that? Why did it have to come to that? I want to ask you all this question. What do you think submission looks like in an argument? If you're having an argument with your partner, if you guys are going back and forth, maybe you're feeling like, I need you to hear me. I don't feel like you're hearing me. What do you do? How can you avoid having to get to that point where you have to say the word pineapple or you have to say banana split? How do you avoid getting there? Because that's something, like I said, I had to learn later with me and my husband. I learned that after. I learned, okay, here's the point where I need to submit. I need to stop now because it's too much. I would say when you're in an argument and you are having this situation where maybe as women, we always feel like we're not heard. You know, that's why a lot of women tend to talk overly too much, because it's like, I don't feel like you're hearing me. And I think that you need to hear everything that I'm thinking about so you can fully understand why I am this way. Men don't tend to think like us. They don't argue like us. And expecting men to argue like us and to understand where we're coming from is absurd. They're not going to get it. In fact, they're going to get irritated and they're going to want to just either get out of the room or completely just diffuse the situation. And if they can't find a way, well then I don't know what other men might do, but it happens. So my way of submitting now, if I were to thank you guys, if I were to get into that mode where I'm feeling like I need to say this to my husband, I need him to hear me out or something, one thing I will not do, and this is part of me submitting, and understanding that my husband has the full reins of our marriage, of our relationship, of everything. I don't need to try to overpower him and to oversteer. I don't need to try to take the wheel, because this is why he's here. I gave him that right the moment that I said I do. I gave him the right to take over. So when it comes to that now, if I'm in that situation, let's say maybe we're at home, right? We're at home, maybe I'm cooking or something and I feel like I need to get this out. I would just have to stop. Honestly, just stop. And I know it's so hard, especially for women, because when we stop, I don't know if men feel this, but a woman, when she has this thing that she needs to get out, and if you tell her to stop, it infuriates us. Like inside, your heart starts pounding harder because you're like, you're not understanding, and I don't want to be seen this way because you're not letting me defend myself. It's so difficult to stop. But taking a moment, sitting back, and just watching your husband. I say, like, watch your husband, get to know your husband, and know the signs of when either he's remorseful or he's irritated or he's tired. Talking in certain moments that are they're just not good moments. Everybody knows this. This is like what Psychology 101. the communication, knowing when to bring things up and when to not, because you don't want to get into that position where your husband or your yeah, I wouldn't say boyfriend because boyfriends don't I don't know what you guys do with the boyfriend, but you don't want to get to the point where your husband is put in a position where it's this or that. It's either I'm talking to her and I'm angry or I'm going to act irrational or I'm going to leave. I'm going to get out of here. You don't want to put him in that position. You want to submit so that he always feels like he's got it, he's in control, and then be soft. I'm saying be softer. The tone of voice that we're speaking in, even how quickly or how slowly we're speaking, because women, we have a tendency to, if we're upset, we might slow down our speech. And you guys know when a girl starts slowing down her speech and starts saying things like, I told you that, see, even that is very aggressive. Once a woman starts saying, don't you remember that I said no? Sometimes silence is golden. Just be silent for a while. Stay silent for a little bit and see how you feel after just a few minutes of being silent. Because a lot of times in us, if we're angry and we're mad and then we stop and stay silent, you might start crying. Because I don't know what is the feeling, like why that happens. Like if I'm upset about something and I stop, I might just start crying. Because it's like you've taken a moment to actually feel the environment and not just go in like raging. So what I typically do is this. I watch my husband. I watch for how he's feeling in the moment that I want to bring up a problem. I watch how he's feeling. I watch my tone. I don't speak in a tone that I think is aggressive. And if I think I can't handle my tone, then I just stay silent, because there's no need for us to get to the point where he has to make a decision, a bad decision. Another thing is breathing. Like I said, breathing. One of the things that Anton asked me about is, what do I do to stay calm? And I told him, I put myself in like a third party position. I take a minute to look at the situation as if I were not there. If I weren't there. There's another thing that somebody said. I don't remember who it was. It might have been my father. Someone once said to me, when you have a huge argument or you feel like something is going wrong and you just like, oh, you're raging, take a moment and think, if this were a life or death situation, would this matter? Would this thing that we're talking about matter? Does it really matter that much? If, like, I guess I don't know the right example to use, but think of it like this. If your husband was in a situation where it was life or death, this issue that you're talking about right now, would that change how you would react in that moment? And if it doesn't, then it's really not that important. It's not that important, and it can wait. It can wait a little bit until you are ready to speak calmly and speak in a way that your husband will hear you. Men, some men, not many, not that I know of, but some men do react well when the woman stands up for herself a little bit better, and some men, you can't do that with them. Some men will completely reject whatever you're saying once a woman starts talking in a masculine tone, because they're going to say, I'm not going to speak to this woman and she's speaking to me as if she were a man, because I can't speak to her back the same way. I couldn't treat her like she's a man, so why are we going to? Charlie. So why are we going to get into this? I'm not even going to start. I want to ask you, how does being submissive look in daily life? When you're going through your everyday duties in life, everything that you do in the day, just let's think about it together. You wake up, you brush your teeth, hopefully. Sorry guys, sorry, I was getting a phone call. Hopefully you brush your teeth, you get up and you get ready for work, you wash your face, you see your husband or wife, you guys hopefully kiss and say goodbye during the day. And during the rest of the day, you most likely don't have to interact with your husband until he gets home from work. Most of the time. Not like me. I actually work for my husband, so I see him all day. Most people, however, you don't see that person until they come home later on that night. When you are a submissive wife, you 1 minute, guys. I'm sorry. I need to just tell my husband that I'm on live stream. 1 minute. I'm waiting.
Mic check. 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 Mirror. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me
hear?
good?
Yeah, I can hear you. All right, let's go.
Sorry, guys. I'm sorry about that. This is my life. Okay, I hope you guys can hear me now. It seems like using certain phones doesn't work. Okay, I think we're good. Let me check the comments, make sure. Okay, we're back. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry about that. That's how you know it's live. Things just go awry. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, right. Where did we leave off? I think we left off talking about submission in daily life, right? So being submissive in daily life is being around the kids, being around parents, around in-laws, around family. Family is very important because they look and they notice. They notice everything that you do. And let's see. The family are going to be the ones that are going to go to your partner and say, oh, this person is good or this person is bad. People can see how we treat each other. And I would say being submissive around your children is almost like this. When I was younger, my mother, now this one has a camera that's a little bit messed up, but when I was younger, my mother would always serve the food on a table and we could not eat until Baba came home. Once Baba picked up his fork and started eating, then everyone else can eat. That's one of the things that we do in our family. And that's how I knew my mother and the rest of the family was submissive to our father, because our father was the one who led. He was the leader, not mama. Mama, she was essential to the home. She was what made the home home. If she wasn't there, the house didn't feel like home. But my father, My father was the man who ran everything. He was the one who you knew if rules were going to be made, he was going to be the one making them. If decisions were going to be made, he was the one making them. That's one thing that we always knew as children. And that's part of a woman being submissive in daily life and showing the children how things should be. Around, okay, and I want to say like around family, now that we're talking about children, around in-laws and such. You have to remember, my mother-in-law lives with us. So she sees me every day and how I am with my husband. She sees it. These are the things that are, oh my God. Your in-laws are going to be judgmental of you no matter what. You cannot control that. So you let them see how you act. When you are submissive to your husband, when your in-laws are, let me see if I can give an example. I think I want to say when your in-laws are watching you, they are watching if you are always in communication with your husband. Like for me, if I'm going to leave the home, all the time I'm telling my husband, I'm leaving the home now. I will be here, here, and here. Do you know what I mean? My husband doesn't have to worry about where I've gone or what I'm doing because I understand that I do report to him because he is the one running the show. I report to my husband. I let him know where I'm going, what I'm doing at all times. Your in-laws and such, they're watching that. They can see that and sometimes people just get unlucky and they just have in-laws that are just that don't like them no matter what. But if you have fair in-laws, they will see that. They will see what you're doing. And yes, Sean, I report to my husband. I do. When we're out in public, this is a kind of a crucial time just because when you're out in public, there's so many distractions that can come. There's so many other elements and variables to consider when you're outside that you might actually lose your, how can I say, sometimes you may lose your, I don't want to say your place. You lose your focus sometimes. When you're outside and you have outside influences, maybe someone irritated you outside. Maybe someone stepped on your foot, woman. As a woman, we wear high heel shoes and we wear, sometimes our toes are out. Sometimes somebody might step on your shoe. Should you take it into your own hands and say, hey, you don't step on my shoe. What's wrong with you? Should you do that? I'm sure some people are saying, yeah, get it. No, please don't. Please don't do it. When you are with your husband, you have to behave differently. Submit to your man. Your man, if he saw that or if he didn't see it, nudge him. Show what happened. Look at, did you see? Your man should take care of it. Submit to him. He will take care of it. You don't have to do everything by yourself. You don't have to say, I'm going to take care of this, baby. Don't worry about it. Like, no. But anyway, like I said, that's how I do it outside. And also, even like Rila said, Rila, we were talking on the live stream one day, and he said, when me and my woman are out in public, I make her walk on the inside of the sidewalk. I don't let her walk on the outside because that's my job. Now, she had the job of submitting to Rila and saying, yes, I'm going to let my man stand on the outside because I'm letting him be a man. I'm letting him do what he feels that needs to be done to keep his woman safe. You know what I mean? These are acts of submission. These are acts of letting the other person run the show because you don't need to, because you have already made an agreement between you and your partner that you are running it. You're running it. And that's why it's really important to pick a man that is good at running the show. You don't want to pick a man that doesn't know how to lead and then you submit to that man that doesn't know how to lead. And then you're putting in a worse position. You're in a worse position because a man that doesn't know how to lead is also going to put you in danger. You're going to be in danger and it's just, it's not a good scene. It's not a good scene. I want to move on to how my husband feels when I am submissive to him. How does my husband feel? How do men feel when
their woman is submitting to them. And do they know it? Do they recognize it? And do they like it or do they dislike it? Do they feel extra pressure when they are put in that position to lead? Or is that a welcome pressure that they accept gracefully? That's one thing that I want to speak about. Because, like I said, I did have that incident when I first got married and I didn't know how to handle myself. I didn't know that I was being out of line. I didn't recognize it because I was in my head that day. And I was like, I'm going to make sure you hear what I have to say because I need you to know. And no, no. How do they feel? One thing that I can say, because I'm not a man, I can't say exactly how men feel about everything, but one thing I can say is what I see when a woman is submissive versus what I see when she's not. I have seen in just daily life, when you see women that are taking on the role of the leader, you see that the man feels insecure. He feels that he has to not only face the world, but also I have to face my woman because everything that I say is going to be questioned. Everything that I do is going to be scrutinized. I hope I'm using that word right. Everything that I do is going to be scrutinized. So, what do you think the man is going to feel when he has to deal with that and knowing that men in their heart, most men anyway, I can't speak for all, of course. I know Kay is going to say, not all. Okay, Kay. Not all men feel this way, but the majority of men, because of their high testosterone, they will feel this way. They will feel, I don't want to have to battle with my woman when I'm already battling the world, right? I'm already dealing with all of these things, and I don't have to come home and deal with this. Oh, I had a point right now. It was just in my head, but I had just finished the sentence. Give me a second. Okay, we'll come back to it. But right, so would my husband be the man that he is if I wasn't the way I am? If I wasn't submissive to him, what would he be? Honestly, he wouldn't be mine because I'm sure he would not be with a woman that's not feminine, submissive, everything. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't. But what would he be if I weren't? Let's say we had this miraculous thing and he just ended up staying with a non-submissive woman, an unsubmissive woman. My husband would doubt himself. He would question everything. I'm sure that he would wonder if he's even capable of leading because he would probably think like, everything that I'm leading my woman to, she doesn't like it, she disagrees, she has a problem. Like, what should I do? I think that is confusing for a man as well. Men, correct me if I'm wrong. I am looking at the chat, and I hope we get some chats posted here. But I want to hear from you too. What do you feel if you have to deal with that? What do you think about this relationship? Do you feel insecure, or do you feel like this is good because we have two leaders and it's an extra help because at least the woman can help you lead or however you want? I don't know. All I know is that women shouldn't be just these quiet things. You don't have to be quiet and just let everything happen. Yes, you can be somewhat like a vice president and always help your man. But at the end, in the end, he is the one who's going to make the decision, and you have to be okay with that. Part of being submissive is just letting go of that control that you feel that you need. And I know for a lot of women that's very hard, especially the women that have grown up with this modern feminist, anything you can do, I can do better mentality. Of course, that's going to be completely in contradiction to what a woman has been told all her life in this country. When a woman has been raised up to think that whatever he can do, I can do better, then why would I feel like I need you to do it if I can do it for myself? Of course, it's going to be hard for any woman to completely rewire her brain to think, I may be able to do it, but I'm sure my man does it better. Or, you know, I could do it. I could, but part of my power is letting my husband lead because I know that I can still guide him. I know he will still hear me out. I have my last questions. My last two questions are, what happens if you do not submit to your man? What happens if you don't? What happens if he took the chance on you to marry you and then he finds out that you are insubordinate, uncooperative, a problem? What happens? We already spoke about how people's self-confidence, a man's self-confidence can probably go down because of that. Like I said, I'm not a man. I'm waiting for the men to tell me that. What happens when all of these things happen? What happens daily after days go by, weeks go by, years if he stays? What happens to him? What happens to you? Do you think about the long-term issue with it? What's going to happen? A lot of times you will see either the man goes off on his own and he just completely disregards that woman because he just can't take it anymore. And then he's left on his own to do things and possibly make mistakes that probably wouldn't have been made had he had a good woman on his side. Or everything falls. Everything just completely goes down because especially a leader, when a leader is feeling insecure, you either, everything that you've ever built, everything you've ever made will be lost. And you're uncertain of yourself, unsure, you're doubting, you're confused, you don't feel like you have any help. Or you'll just be alone, or you just end up alone. That's it, divorce. Matt says he turns into a lone wolf. See, that's sad. That's really sad. So I want to ask you, is this important? Is this important for us to understand this as women? Is it important for women to learn this lesson and not have to learn the hard way like I did? Is it important? Or do you think that you can still have a great relationship and a great marriage without this? Do you agree? I want to take some phone calls. I want to hear from people. I want to hear what you think about this. I hope we're opening the phone lines. It should be in the link, in the description, sorry. It's so sad. Every single time I try to do a nice live stream, it always happens. It's always some kind of technical issue. That's my life. Let me see. Thank you, Crypto. Khalil says, if it ain't a patriarch, it's for the streets. Ernest says, yes, it's very important. A healthy marriage cannot survive without a masculine man leading and a feminine woman following. Fit Legend says, Ameera, is it early over there? It's evening, late evening. Let me see. Burning Coal says, submission does not mean slave. Wife submission in the Middle East culture, a woman have to obey her husband and his leading in relationship. There is wisdom behind it. Yeah. And like I said, there's also power behind the things that you don't do. Because that's what they said the real power is, in the things that you don't do. Hey, Hentai.
Hey, how you doing? How are you doing today? Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you now.
Okay, good. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad.
So what do you think about the topic?
Right, we've discussed a little bit, you and I, about how my marriage failed.
Right.
In the past, but and part of that was because my wife and I were constantly butting heads. My ex-wife, rather. And so I do agree somewhat with what you're saying, but again, the way I was raised was that not only should the wife submit to the husband, but the husband should also in ways submit to the wife, and that way they prop each other up, and it's more of a I guess a partnership that way.
Well, Hentai, just really quickly, I understand what you're saying. But what I want to say is when you have that kind of situation, it's almost like you can't have two people that are following. Does that make sense? You can't
No,
have
I
two
get what you're
followers.
saying. Yeah, that makes
Mm.
sense. It does. I don't know. The whole situation, like this was again the way I was raised. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around the subject of like two people submitting to each other. You know, I get that. That's a little strange. But just what I wanted from my ex-wife and what I had hoped that she wanted from me was less submission and more cooperation. Does that make sense?
Mm.
You know,
She wanted that from you, you said?
No, well, I would have hoped that she wanted that. It turns out not so much.
Well, Hentai, don't you think that could have been one of the issues that you had? Now, I don't know the ins and outs of your marriage, your ex-marriage, but that the way that you're thinking, it sounds like it could be an issue just because you are kind of putting yourself in a position where you are at the whim of the woman when, you know, things tend to work better when the man accepts his role and doesn't try to do the woman's role. Does that make sense? When a woman is supposed to submit, a man is supposed to love his wife, but you're not supposed to be submitting to her. Yes, I think you should love her, yes, but submitting in the sense that we're talking about today, I don't know. It just seems like it could have been an issue.
No, I agree with a lot of what you're saying today. I think that it makes a lot of sense. You know, I was just given some perspective on the background that I was raised with, and going into my marriage with that mindset, I think is probably why, a big part of why anyway, that it didn't work out.
I see. What will you do different in your next marriage? Are you going to get married again?
I don't think I will, no, because I was also raised to be very monogamous. And one marriage is, you know, I was raised to believe that you get married and that's it, you stay married. And, you know, the divorce wasn't my idea, but here we are. And so, no, I think that I'm probably done with that. But if I were to do it again, I think the key, is probably more effective communication, because we weren't very good at that. You know, and I don't think I communicated very well. I learned a lot about how I failed as well.
I understand. I'm sorry to hear that, Hentai, because I really, I guess I thought you had more hope for the future in marriage, but you know, you can't force a man to do it. I mean, it's a huge responsibility, and if you feel that it's not for you anymore, I have to respect that. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking with me about it.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, it's good to talk to you. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you, Hentai. Bye. That's sad.
Hi, Ameera.
Hey.
I am so excited to finally be on because it's usually late at night, and so I'm like, I don't feel like getting all dressed up to get on camera. So anyway, I do want to pose a question to you.
Yes.
First, give you a little bit of background.
Yes.
So I was told at one point that like my thought process is too submissive because I said like, if I were to get married one day, or when I get married one day, that my husband could literally tell me to go hug a tree, and I would trust him enough to go hug that tree, because I would feel like he would have a purpose behind that. So do you feel like if you trust your husband enough to marry him, could you be too submissive to your own husband?
No, because the man that you chose to marry, this is why you vet your man before you get married. You choose a man that you know will not lead you astray, that will not lead you down the edge of a cliff. You know, if you pick a man like that and then you submit to the wrong man, that's what I mentioned earlier about submitting to the wrong kind of man can put you in danger. It can. That's why you need to be very careful about who you submit to in a marriage. I mean, and there's a certain level of submittance. Is that a word? Submittance that we give every man around us anyway, because we understand that they have the power. That if something goes wrong, or if there's an issue, most likely the men around you are going to be the ones that are going to help you get out of that situation. So no matter what, we should have a certain level of submitting to everyone around us when it comes down to the men around us. But in this case, if you marry a man that is going to lead you astray, you have to get out of that situation as soon as possible, because you can risk a lot of danger. And like you said, if you're worried about being too submissive, I don't think you can be too submissive to the right man. If you have your husband, you should be willing to do anything.
And I agree with you. Thank you for that insight, and thank you for all of the insight that you have been giving us over the last, I guess, couple of months now or so, right? Here on the Lapeef Network.
1 month. I've been here maybe 1 month now.
Okay, well, I really appreciate it. And thank you, JR, for hosting this. And I appreciate all of you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Oh, that's really sweet. Super sweet. Submitting too much. I've never really heard that, but it kind of makes sense, because some people see submitting as being a slave to your partner. I kind of understand where they're getting at when they say that.
It kind of makes sense.
Submitting
as being a slave to your.
Hi, Lashana.
When they say that, it kind of makes sense.
Hi.
Submitting as being a slave.
Can you turn off your YouTube?
Hi, Lashana.
Hi. Hold on a second. Is that better?
Yep, that's good.
Oh my gosh, I'm really excited to meet you. Okay. Hi.
Thank you.
So I just had like just a comment to make about submission. I've been married for 10 years.
Lovely.
Yeah, I have 2 kids, married 10 years. My husband's 15 years my senior. So
welcome to the club.
Yeah. I feel like when a lot of women think about submission, they think about losing something, and you honestly get a lot more if you just learn when to be quiet. He'll bend over backwards for you. He'll give you so much more. He'll want to do so much more if you you really just have to learn. And I really like when you said, like, you pay attention to him. You pay attention to, like, okay, you're looking for those cues, like, okay, is this the appropriate time to bring up something, like, okay, he just got off work. Is he hot? Is he hungry? Like, is this, you're just always observing them, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I do that a lot.
I mean, that's a beautiful thing, and it's beautiful that you've been married for 10 years. I think you could teach me a thing or two, because I haven't been married that long, and you must have some great stories about, your dynamic between you and your husband, I imagine. Did you have to learn this, or were you already a submissive woman when you came, or did you have any hiccups like I did? How did it?
I had to learn a lot. I did. I had to learn a lot. I came in thinking that I was good. I was like, oh yeah, he's the problem. I'm good. Like, I don't have anything to learn. I've learned so much. I've learned so much, and I give my sisters a lot of advice. And yeah, I've learned a lot. I've learned so much. I've just learned, honestly, like, how men think differently than women, and like how to argue too, like when I need something from my husband, or like when we're having like adversity or like tension in our relationship where we need to like talk, when I'm talking, I say things once. I don't keep nagging him about it. I don't keep saying it over and over again. Like, if I need, or like if I'm not being heard, like what you said, I say it once and I just stop. Like, I don't keep at him, because I feel like because we trust each other so much and we love each other so much, I know those buttons. I can hit below the belt. I can, you know what I'm saying? Like, it can get really ugly. I have the power to do that. We tell each other everything. I have the power to to make it,
I
to make
know.
it go left. I can make it go left, but I choose, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I love him so much. It's just like, I'm not going to do that. It's like, I don't know, being sweet, it really goes a long way. Like, it really does. Like,
You brought up a good point. That's a really good point. Wives, because we're with our husbands all the time, because we know their weaknesses, because we have that power. If we wanted to do that, we could. And that's why I said the power is in what you don't do versus what you do. That is such a good point. I didn't even think about that, but that's so true.
Yeah, you really could. I mean, like, it's a tool that you have, but like, it's like they're trusting you not to use it. It's like they trust you with it, but they trust you not to use it. So it's just like, it's like, I have the tools to annihilate you. I could. You have the tools to do that to me, but out of love and respect, we would never do that. Although those are in our arsenal, because over time we develop, you know what I mean? Like, I know everything about you, you know everything about me, but like, at the end of the day, we trust each other to, like, come in love, and honestly, you get so much more when you do that. So
that's true. And I want to ask you really one question before, but I want to say this. Our husbands hold us to a higher standard. They expect us to not act like the women of the world. They expect that when they come home, they have an angel in the house, and that's what we should be. I want to ask you, what do you think is one of the great benefits that you have received in your marriage because of how you act and how you treat your man? What do you think is one of the things that he's given you? Just one. What do you think is one of the things that he's given you because of how you act to him?
Oh my gosh, like, I mean, just so many, like, oh man, like, he's giving me everything, like, but like, he's given me a great husband. Like, he has given me himself fully. And like, I don't have to tell him those things and those little things like, hey, can you change this? Hey babe, can we tweak this? Can you do this? It's more self-reflective and he's more self-aware. We don't have to have those conversations anymore. He's just like, he wants to thrive. He wants to do better. He's always like climbing to do better. And he's always, he just wants to do all those things for us. It's like what he's given me himself. He's given me like everything. Like, oh my gosh, he's given me just so much. He's giving me just oh my God, like his life, So like,
but that's probably because you showed him, how can I say, you gave him the security to do so, because he doesn't feel like he has to come home and fight every day. Probably that's why he does that for you. I'm so happy. You seem like such a happy wife. And just watching you talk about your husband, you can tell like the way your eyes are. And it's like, I can tell that you have been treated very well. And I'm sure you are giving him that in return.
I really have. I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time, and now I'm working, and I tell him all the time, I'm like, I know this job is like, I intervene with kids. I help them read, and it's just like, it's a very like, it takes a lot out of me sometimes, but I tell him, babe, I haven't forgotten my priorities. I know what my roles are. I know what I have to do. And so he's just like, oh man, like, thank you so much for telling me that, like, you still know what you need to do. Right. And he really likes that reassurance. Like, I know you're out there and you're doing this, but it feels so good for him to know, like, thank you for letting me know when you come home, like, you know what's up.
You remember, you remember what you,
exactly. I know my priorities, and that hasn't changed. And like, he loves that. And he does so much for me because of just those little things. Like, I don't even have to ask for anything anymore. He's just like incredible, but it's taken a long time to get there. And a lot has happened and a lot has transpired during the time. I met him when I was 18. So we've been through a lot. So
You know, marriages hold some of the deepest, craziest secrets that you wouldn't, you know, reality is stranger than fiction. It's true. I want to thank you so much for bringing your story. You have like calmed my heart. That is beautiful to hear. Thank you so much for coming on.
thank you.
Thank you. That is so sweet.
Hello.
Hi, Vincent here. Hi.
Hey, okay, so
I had one of your videos pop up in my feed before.
oh, okay. I do watch this show on occasion, and I just really wanted to come here and support the message that you're giving out today, because you really gave a beautiful explanation of what submission really is and what that really means. And I think a lot of women just don't understand what it entails and what you get. I was married for 20 years. I got widowed in 2018, but that marriage taught me so much about me, about him, about how to interact with men. And then to hear you talk about your husband and how you interact with him brought a smile to my face, because I remember reporting to him, you know, and like, okay, I'm going here, I'm going there. You know, you don't have to worry about, and it alleviates the men's minds. And I think that's the part that a lot of women today miss. We are not his partner, we're his helpmeet. Yes. And that's different.
Yes.
You enter into a partnership with a business. That's different. That's a totally different dynamic. You don't enter into that in a marriage. You enter into, his job is leading, but our job as women is the following. And that's the thing that I really appreciated about what you said today, this evening, and how beautiful and clear that explanation was. And I'm just hoping that a lot of women actually take it, because we're taught that submission is a weakness, and we're taught that giving up that control to your husband is a detriment to you somehow as a woman. But if you vet it properly and you have the proper femininity and he has the proper masculinity, there shouldn't be that fear of it, because we want him to trust us. Right?
That's true.
So then we have to reciprocate that trust of his leadership, because if you don't trust his leadership, then I question why you allowed yourself to be chosen by that man.
Yes, ma'am. Exactly. That's the same question that I asked. You shouldn't. What do you think about what I said? Like, submitting to the wrong man can be dangerous for a woman. What do you think about that?
I think that's totally true. And I think as women, we have a lot of responsibility for that, in the sense that we need to have our stuff together enough to recognize when a man isn't going to be a good leader in the long haul. Recognize those signs. And you don't have to get angry with him. Doesn't mean he's a horrible person. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means, okay, me and this man don't align. Our values aren't the same. I'm not going to be a good asset to him. If he can't lead, I'm not going to be a good follower. And this relationship is pretty much on the path of doom, really, before it gets started. So you were definitely spot on with that.
I appreciate that so much. Are you Muslim, sister?
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
Nice to see a Muslim. Nice to see a Muslim sister here. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mashallah.
All right. Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you so much for coming on. That was beautiful. Oh, it was beautiful. B9!
Hey, beautiful. How you doing?
Hi. Good, good. Thank you.
Great stream. Shout out to Lapeef. Shout out to Rilla in the chat. Another wonderful show as usual. First and foremost, on your topic of submission, a lot of people have the opposite definition of submission, and as far as what you draw from it. Submission is drawn from strength, not from weakness. Just because submission from a woman doesn't look the same as submission looks from a man doesn't mean that it's not as strong, and it doesn't take a strong person to give that submission. If I'm willing to give my life for my wife and my children, I have submitted to them. And that's a submission that I will gladly make 1,000 times out of 1,000. So to accept some type of reciprocation in return for my submission, I think it's fair.
I understand that.
Because I don't know one man in the world that hears a bump in the middle of the night that says, okay, all right, this time you go check it out, honey.
Okay, your turn. I went last time.
They're not going to draw straws at that point. He has no choice 100 out of 100 times to be the one on the front line.
True, true.
So if we don't have that option and we've committed to that code, then we expect reciprocation, and we expect a code that you all submit to as well.
Can I ask you a question, B9? I want to ask you, what do you think, because I can't answer the question because I'm not a man, but I want to ask you, what do you think men feel when they have a woman that is insubordinate, uncooperative, unsubmissive? How do men feel, and what are the long-term effects of living with a woman like that for a man?
Well, subconsciously, and a lot of men might not be able to admit this to themselves, but subconsciously, they know that it's their fault. Whenever you have somebody that's in your circle that you've attached yourself to of your own free will, and you have nothing but complaints and problems and issues, you have to look in the mirror and say, you made the wrong decision. Because nobody put a shotgun to your head and said that this is the girl you have to be with. And for females, nobody said this is the man you have to be with. If he's lazy, if he gets on your nerves, if she's too loud and she spends all your money, that's your fault. That's not her fault. That's your fault for not having the wisdom to be able to vet properly. And people don't want to look in the mirror, so they'll pass the buck and say, oh, she was wonderful at first when I met her at the strip club on the pole. What? No, it's no wonderful at first. You met her at the strip club on the pole.
Right.
End of the story. Like, you have to choose properly. And if for whatever reason you don't, that's on you. But the one thing I want to get back to with the submission thing is a lot of people hate on you, and you know that from the Lapeef show or whatever. But what I want to point out is that you are just a product of your environment. You come from a lineage where you're doing the same thing all other women are doing. They're representing their family. It's just your family representation and expectations are different than other women's expectations. If you talk back to a man or your husband, your father's going to look at you a certain way. Your mother's going to look at you a certain way. On the opposite end of the spectrum, if a black woman submits and is silent around her man or shuts up when her man says shut up, her mother's going to look at her like, wait a minute. I can't believe I didn't raise my daughter to accept any man talking. So we were all doing the same thing. You just have different goals. There's a different pot of gold at the end of y'all's rainbow. That pot of gold is to be submissive, because that's how you maintain your family honor. In the black community, being belligerent is how you maintain the sisterhood honor, because the black family pretty much consists of, in a lot of cases, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, it consists of the grandmother, the mother, the aunts, The uncles, there is no just mother, father, and that's the leadership. There's a lot of children out here that still carry their mother's maiden name because that's their family. They're attached to that family. They're not attached to the father and making their own way and doing something like that. And that's why I always go back to my embassy talk, because I understand that people are angry at you when they should be angry at the establishment. They should be angry that the traditions and the things, the infrastructures that you have in place aren't in place for us. And if we really want to improve things and we really want to give Ameera all the shine that you definitely deserve, but we can also mimic and learn from you by putting forth those same infrastructures, because until it matters to a woman's mother how she treats me, I'm not going to win.
I see. I see.
So you're doing the same thing. You're just doing it for different side on different sides of the fence in a lot of cases. And that's why I pointed out what I pointed out on the Lapeef show. And like I said, I hope I wasn't disrespectful, but that's what I just saw with my own eyes, that Courtney talks a lot about what a Black woman should be, and Courtney is absolutely right in her talking point. But she has to be able to show it through her actions. Actions speak louder than words. And you and Courtney have a lot in common. You all have a lot of the same talking points. I feel that the biggest issue is, and I don't know if this is a thing in your culture, but it's something in the Black culture. You can't have but so many women in one kitchen. When it's a Black woman's kitchen, don't come in her kitchen touching her salt and her pepper and moving pots and plates around. That's her system. And people don't realize from a scientific standpoint that the X chromosome is the most dominant chromosome. The Y chromosome is the recessive chromosome in the large scheme of things. So because of that, the dominant is always going to be the most aggressive. The same way brown hair is going to be more dominant than blonde. Brown eyes are going to be more dominant than blue. When you have a regular male and female relationship, you have 3 X chromosomes and only one Y. And that's a regular relationship. So you have to combat that type of aggression and dominance. And that's why religion, in a lot of cases, regardless of what religion you are, that's why religion is so important, because it is trying to squelch the human nature of us so that we can be our most productive. We are our most productive when we allow the men to lead, when we allow the men to build.
So true.
And when a woman is in her true femininity, this is where the strength comes in. She allows the man to have the strength of 10, because a man will do anything for a feminine woman. There's no mistake that the Playboy empire was built off of the pinup girl, which meant something to the World War I and World War II soldiers to get through those tough times. And if you are lucky enough, somebody who is just as good internally as they are beautiful externally, you're winning. And that's all we do is win. We're just frustrated with each other because you have thousands of hundreds of years of tradition which has led you this way. We just got Kevin Samuels 2 years ago. 3 years ago. So we're in the beginning stages of a lot of things that we're trying to change, we're trying to adjust to. And a lot of us have to come to the realization that this isn't going to get done right sometimes until the next generation. Because we're talking to women that are 30, 40, 50 years old. We're not going to recreate. Well, I don't want to say that. We're not going to recreate something that's already formed and molded.
That's true. B9, I wanted to ask you, do you have your own channel yet?
I've always had my own channel. I just don't promote it because this is y'all thing. And, I want to respect your platform. But, yeah, I have my own channel. I talk my stocks and my crypto and my real estate.
What's the name?
B9. B9.
Oh, just B9 though.
Just B9. It's only one me.
That's true. That is so true. It's always a pleasure to hear you talk, B9.
I'm on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. But like I said, this is about Lapeef and you.
One second. No, not right now. Not right now. Sorry.
Oh, no. Like, this is about what you all are doing. What you all are doing is absolutely excellent. I'm one of your biggest fans, as you can tell by me always supporting. Keep up the great work. You all are going. If you all were a stock, I'd buy you by the ton.
Thank you.
Great work, you all. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye. B9 is always amazing when he comes through. Oh, hi, Kosher.
Greetings. How are you doing, young lady?
Doing well, thank you.
Well,
what do you think about the topic?
I think it's a very exciting topic. I think the word submission actually, a lot of times, is a misnomer because in the tenets of theology, everyone submits. Men and women submit. In the Gospels, the Gospel says, "Submit ye to one another." And if you look at the Abrahamic laws from Judaism, Christianity, and also Islam, Sarah called Ibrahim Lord. And so submission really is a duality where men and women actually benefit one another. But we've been trained in a culture where women think submission means slavery. But submission is a duality because it just means to agree. When you look at submission due the limits of science, submission is similar to a symbiotic relationship where the man and woman works together. It's what makes them pliable. But the problem is, Ameera, the vibrancy that you have as a feminine woman, that's what many Black men actually want. And shout out to the good sisters that are feminine. There are some. But unfortunately, a lot of men are traveling abroad looking for that true femininity because, see, unfortunately, in American culture, American men don't necessarily have what's called a true patriarchy. In your country or culture, the patriarchy more or less enforces the rules. And when those women are not more or less complicit with the rules of that culture, then there's a penalty. In America, there is no penalty. A woman can get in a man's face, disrespect him, and nothing happens. But in other cultures, if that happens, there is a penalty. And that's one of the reasons why, I started what I'm doing as a licensed therapist, but also I have a YouTube channel as well called The Kosher Clinician, where I talk about 7 concepts to help men become optimized. And so I think the discussion is powerful. I think men need to more or less start standing on their principle and doing what's vital to help them become better men, because the masculine and feminine is very powerful when it's synchronized together. But I think that synchronicity, you don't see it in this culture compared to your culture, in my opinion.
True, agree. Can I ask you the question of the night for the men?
Yes, ma'am, please do.
The question of the night is for men. What do you feel when you're in a situation where you're with a woman who is uncooperative, unsubmissive, dominant? What are the long-term effects on a man from dealing with a woman that is that way?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I think I've done a lot of work on my channel talking about that, but I think the long-term consequences is for a lot of men low testosterone and also quick death. If you look back once again from the tenets of theology, it actually says that a quarrelsome and a contentious woman will run a man to the rooftop. Men actually get stronger due to feminine women. And see, Ameera, there was a study in the past that says that men that are married actually live longer, but that's a misnomer and a myth. Men that are in relationships with a woman are feminine and cooperative actually live longer. So I say to a woman that's cantankerous and does not more or less respect the admonition of that man, then I think that man first should go through prescriptive guidelines to warn her of the error of her way. But if she does not adhere, I think he needs to come up with an exit strategy to eventually get rid of her. Because see, in other countries like your country, the Middle East, in countries in Africa, there's a penalty for being dishonorable to a man. And, you know, even if you go back to the tenets of the Old Testament, you know, sometimes the penalty was death. And unfortunately, even in your country, in the Middle East, death is still initiated sometimes to those women that don't respect their husbands. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, we have honor killings. Yes.
Honor killings, right. And so, you know, I went to Brazil recently. You know, I'm part of a group of men, you know, that travel, you know, the Black Man's Options. Even though I'm a clinical therapist, I'm a licensed clinical therapist. And, you know, the women of those countries are very feminine. They treat their men well. And I keep telling women that their greatest asset is their femininity. That's their greatest asset. When a woman learns to use her femininity, she can get anything from a man, but it must be true. It must be pure. And it must be what I call kosher femininity, and not something where the woman has an agenda to more or less usurp the authority of a man, but it should be genuine, and it should be what I call kosher. And when it's kosher, then things are more or less beneficial for both man and the woman. But unfortunately, men in America don't define what they want or more or less demand what they want, because men in America live in a matriarchy, and many men in America have been conditioned to be simps. And because of that simp conditioning, they don't know what true masculinity look like, and therefore they more or less sabotage themselves in the relationship. Because I'm a true believer that women respect power and strength, and in other cultures, those men exude power and strength. And so that's really what calibrates a woman's femininity, the man that holds her accountable. Women were designed to look up to a man, and you know, but unfortunately, you know, men, they don't understand it. They think by subjugating themselves to a woman, that makes them makes that woman want him more. But in actuality, it doesn't make the woman want him more. It actually makes the woman repel him. Because listen, as a clinical therapist, there's a such thing called behavior psychology. And in a relationship, it must be positive reinforcement for both the man and the woman. But let's say, for example, you know, if you're with your husband and every time you say you want some, he says, happy wife, happy life, where it's positive reinforcement for you, but it's negative reinforcement for him. And every time he submits to your will, then his ego is being diminished and your respect for him is actually being diminished. So in a relationship, it must be a symbiosis when the man and the woman works together as a team. And when they work together as a team, they get the outcomes that they want. And so that's why, you know, I decided to start what I'm doing now, you know, as a licensed therapist, you know, the Manhood Chronicles and the Kosher Clinician, to give men outcomes that can help them become better versions of themselves.
You have been amazing. Wow. I feel like I just went to school. I felt like I needed to take some notes. I mean, that is amazing.
Right. I'm impressed with your work. You know, I like you guys on the Lapeef show. I've seen the guys on the Lapeef show. Shout out to Chicago Rilla. He actually came in my chat. Yeah, in the past with Mr. Palmer, child support. And so, but it's needed. You know, men need outlets. Men need love. They need support. And I think when men are happy, they get the best versions of themselves. That's why, unfortunately, men are traveling abroad. They're looking for feminine women like you. They're looking for feminine, cooperative, submissive women. And I keep telling women that submission does not mean that you're a slave. Actually, it's your greatest asset to a man, because when you submit to him, he will submit to you. But I want to share this with you in a few minutes before I leave. Men and women actually both submit, Ameera, but they submit in different ways. The woman is supposed to submit to the authority of a man, but he submits by giving her love, protection, provision, and giving his life. That's a submission duty of a man. But the woman submits to the authority of a man. She submits to his authority. She submits to his provision. She submits to his protection. And so therefore, it's a symbiotic relationship when they both are working together as a team. But our women have been conditioned through, unfortunately, through some liberal policies such as feminism, that submission makes her a slave. And it's foolish, because if a man is expected to give his life at any time if a stranger comes in the home, that in itself is a form of submission. But many women, unfortunately, some don't see it. But I want to say shout out to the good sisters that do see it. And I'm grateful to the women that actually understand that when men and women work together, like the Fannie Lou Hamans of the world, you have stronger communities, you have happier women, and you have happier children. But unfortunately, you don't see those strong communities like they were in the past. At one time, the Black community was very vibrant and strong. And the men, said what they meant and meant what they said. But unfortunately, when a large percentage of our children are being born out of wedlock, you don't see strong masculine fathers. You have the deleterious outcomes that you have now, unfortunately.
You have taught me something. I honestly didn't see it that way. The way you broke it down, submission, I didn't think that, well, I didn't use that word for submission for men. I use sacrifice for men, that men sacrifice and women submit. But I think you're right. It is a form of submission, actually. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for teaching me that. I learned something.
Right. Christians, Jews, and Muslims are children of the book. And even though some of our ideals differ, Jesus submitted to God, Christ submits to man, and children submits to the man submits to Christ, and children and women submits to the husband. And so just like a man provides provision, it makes everything better for the children. So I'm honored to have had the opportunity to speak with you. Hopefully we can have this conversation again. If you ever would love to come on my channel and talk. But I'm honored and grateful, and shout out once again to Lapeef, Chicago Real, and Anton. Thank you guys for having me on the show. I really
thank you so much, guys. Go subscribe to the Kosher Clinician. This is great.
Thank you, dear. All right.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Was that not amazing? Am I the only one amazed? That was amazing. That was such a great conversation. Even I learned something. Like, hi Zod. Here, I think you're on mute. Hold on. Can we take him off mute, or does he have to take him off? There you go. I can hear you now.
What's up? How's it going?
Good.
All right.
What do you think about the topic?
I mean, it's great. I just came in like towards the end, and I heard a couple, especially like the last two guys. B9, that's my dog. But the kosher guy, man, he was well rounded when it came to I don't know. I would just say a lot of times both men and women, like, they look at the word submission the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like, it's like opposite. The women look at it like, I ain't submitting, and the men look at it kind of like, maybe I need to submit to her more. You know what I mean? And I just think like it's just backwards. It's backwards. I'm just glad that on the Lapeef Network now, so they have somebody that's really actually feminine on the panel. You know what I mean? So
thank you. I appreciate that so much. I'm so happy to be here. It's like one of the best decisions I've made so far, is to be here with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, we enjoy it. It's like a breath of fresh air when you meet like a real. I'm not sure. Did you grow up in America?
I'm sorry?
Did you grow up in America?
Part of my life, yes. But I've lived in 7 countries, so part America, part other countries, but mostly in America, I would say.
Would you say that you noticed that there's it's hard to find like a feminine woman in America, especially like on the East Coast? I really found that out like the hard way. But I don't want to keep you up too long. I just wanted to show my face, say what's up. Hope you had a nice day.
No, I mean, I want you to answer the question though before you go, unless you have to go quickly. But I want you to answer. This is a question for the men. The question is, let me remember it now. The question is, what are the long-term effects for a man of living with a woman or being with a woman that is uncooperative, unsubmissive, and basically a problem? What are the long-term effects on a man of living with that kind of woman?
Becomes a shell of himself. I think that you just get lost you don't really know what manhood is, because the woman who's supposed to be kind of like following your lead is trying to become the leader. You know what I mean? So it's just, and then it's on top of that, it's a lot of confusion out here, because when if you were a woman that's so harsh and not submissive at all, not feminine at all, Like you damn near have to smack her to get her in place. You know what I mean? And in our country, I mean, I'm not advocating for anybody to do anything like that. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't smack a woman. I would just beat her. But I mean, to me, like, and nowadays, like back in the day, I guess, or maybe in other countries, that's what they do to get their woman straightened out. But nowadays, in our country, the only thing you can do is leave and ignore her. You know what I mean? Like what they say,
Right.
you never know what you got till it's gone. So once you do
Mhm.
that, just try your hardest to forget about it, and then see what happens. But yeah, I think that when you live amongst a woman who's very quarrelsome, like it makes you shrink as a man. You get confused.
Ooh.
Your friends start looking at you different. The kosher clinician, like he said that your testosterone shrinks. I think so too. Like I feel like I know people like that, and their voice even changes. They
Oh
start to
my
speak like
gosh.
they start to speak kind of like like a woman under their breath. You know what I mean? Real quiet. You know what I mean?
Passive
And you
aggressive.
just yeah, passive aggressive instead of actually honest. Because to me, passive aggressive
Mm.
means you're lying. You know what I mean? But you know,
Wow, thank you so much for that answer because I mean each man that I've asked this is giving slightly different answer, but it's just all negative. There's nothing I've seen positive yet coming from this. So thank you.
oh no, yeah, for sure. Like it's in my opinion, like no man really wants it. Like it's so crazy how some people act like they want that. You know what I mean? They act like they want a woman that's like that, and then when they get a woman that's like that, they can't stand it. All they do is complain. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So we all been in that boat. If you grew up in America, it's probably like less than 10% of men who haven't been in that boat where you actually try to change who you are, at the core of yourself, so that you could please a woman.
I understand. Thank you so much for your views. Thank you for coming in.
Have a nice night.
You too. Bye bye. Bolo! Hi,
Hey,
Bolo.
what's going on, Ameera? How are you?
Wait, let me get my notepad and pen now because Bolo's here.
Let me start off by saying, giving a little story. It's like if you grow up in darkness all your life, and the first time you see light, it's definitely going to hurt your eyes. And we tend to think when something hurts, it's bad for us. We don't tend to look at hurt as growth, right? There's no comfortability in growth. So, we need to understand that there's a bigger goal to our relationships. There's a bigger goal. And that goal is to serve the creator. Both the man has a job and both the woman has a job. She has a job also. So when you wrap yourself up in just yourselves, it gets convoluted because now it's about you two. You hit the ceiling. It doesn't get any bigger. So my main focus as a man is the father and what I need to do as a husband and as a father too, right? And her main goal should be towards the father, towards the creator, and how to be a wife and a mother. And then when both of us come together and align, my honor and my duty is to the father. That's what keeps me in line, him, because there's a bigger goal. What keeps her in line is him. So when you submit to me, you're actually submitting to the Most High, but you're using the wisdom and knowledge that He gave you and understanding to vet the man that you are going to submit to. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And this is what a lot of us don't do. Women submit to the man. No, you submit to the Father first, and you use the wisdom and knowledge and understanding that He gives you to vet the man that you ultimately are going to partner up with. Now, by you submitting to the man, that's you submitting to the Most High because this is your job. By me protecting, guiding, leading, nurturing, and sacrificing for you, that's my job towards the Most High because that's what He taught me to do. But together, when we come together and do this, that's the symbiotic relationship that the kosher was talking about, and that's the growth. When you are concentrating on the Most High, the Creator, your relationship has no bounds. It has no roof. It grows astronomically daily, monthly, weekly. And this is the problem that we have. We're not understanding what our roles are. And that's a big problem, right? So husbands that are in alignment with the Most High they become more of a servant to their wife, to their family, than they are a leader. This is what I don't think people understand. That when you have a woman and you understand that she is being submissive to you, you realize how fragile she is. You realize that she counts on you. You then want to protect her. You then want to do anything and everything for her. And this is the symbiotic relationship that we're supposed to have. We feed one another. But when you take my purpose away from me, and you give me that masculine energy like I'm supposed to, it puts me out of alignment. Now we have issues with each other. A lot of men and women seem to forget that the blessings of the Creator sometimes come through pain, hurt, and struggle, because relationships are strengthened through adversity. Relationship with your brothers, relationship with your family, strengthened through adversity. Because through good times. I'm not gonna know Ameera is a good sister to me until we get into some beef and she's right there when the smoke clears. Then I know that I can count on her. And that's what we have to understand. When you vet that man, and that man proves to you, because it's a vetting situation. You don't want to submit your life to a man, because that's what you're doing. You're giving him your life. You're giving him you. You have to make sure that you make the right move, and you have every right to vet him to the point where there is no other answer but yes, I'm giving myself to you. So, everything everyone else said was so on point. I think the one thing that wasn't emphasized was the focus needs to be on the Creator. That's the focus. Because what's going to keep me in alignment with my wife is the Creator. He ultimately keeps me on point, not my woman, and vice versa. What keeps my woman on point is the Creator, because when I'm not around her, she can act like a maniac, right? But as long as she knows that the Creator's watching her, she's going to stay on point. And that's what we need to do. We need to come together like a hand in glove and understand that there's a bigger purpose for us. We need to stop thinking that it's men against women and women against men. We were created for each other.
Bolo,
Yes.
do you want to answer the question of the night really quickly?
Yes. Can you repeat it to me, please?
Yes, sir. So the question is, what are the long-term effects on a man of living or being with a woman that is unsubmissive, uncooperative, and a problem?
Your direction gets interrupted. Destruction, devastation, evil, anger, malice, strife, envy, jealousy. All these things are coupled when a man is with a woman that is not submissive. He starts to question himself. He gets out of alignment, and ultimately he leaves you. He leaves. The Lord tells you that in the scriptures that a man would rather dwell with a dragon than a wicked woman. Think about that. He'd rather dwell with a dragon than a wicked woman. So men, you need to start knowing what your value is. You know what I'm saying? Knowing what your value is so that you can go out there and demand your worth. And it's the same with women. Knowing what your value so you can go out there and demand your worth. Demand your worth, meaning that you need to go out there and get yourself a man that is going to protect you, guide you, lead you, nurture you, and ultimately protect you, and vice versa. Men, understand what your worth is. You need a woman that's going to be submissive to you, a woman that's going to help you, a woman that's going to be there, a woman that's going to be providing, a woman that's going to understand where you fall so then she can be your strength and pray over you. Be that covering, because we fall, men fall. And women need to understand that you have so much power that you can, just this, and then I'll leave. You can have a man sleep with the woman, and that woman say, man, you was weak as hell. and you destroy him. You break him. And then you can have a woman say, you are my king. You are my husband. Go out there and do what you need to do. And that pep talk you give him gives him that strength to go out there and conquer the universe. So it's a symbiotic relationship. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for having me on the show. And God bless you and good night.
Thank you, Bolo. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to hear you.
All right, darling. Good night.
Good night. Okay. Hi, Crystal.
Hi, Ameera. Can you hear
Hi.
me good?
I used to have that same headboard. Yeah, I used to have that same one.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I just wanted to chime in on your discussion tonight because I'm so excited for it. I think it's needed. I think that is refreshing. And I will say that we just celebrated 13 years of marriage, me and my husband.
Oh, that's
August the
beautiful.
9th.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I was actually raised to be married. I was raised to be submissive to a man. I watched my grandmother be submissive to my grandfather. My mother got married once I was older. I was 16, but I watched her take pride in, doing the house chores, serving food, and all that good stuff. So I've adopted those traditions in my own marriage with my husband. I think that is needed to understand that submission. We submit to the will of a leader, which is our husbands, but submission is a sign of humility. It takes away pride and ego.
Yes.
And it's not easy to submit, but if you're constantly checking yourself, praying to God, I'm spiritual. So I believe in the Most High, always looking to him to check myself and
Right.
always finding other ways to get better as a person, as a woman, as a wife, as an individual, period. Me and my husband are business owners, and he put me in position to be a business owner, to open up the business of my dreams. And he did that because he had a goal in mind to also open up another business, what his goal was. And the business that we opened for me ultimately allowed us to afford the next business. And so we're working as a team with business, but I still take pride in my role as his wife. And I believe in us shutting off business at a certain point. Like, I even have business hours. After a certain time, we cannot talk about business. It's home life. And I take pride in that. I take pride in serving my husband and my boys. I have two boys. And I take pride in serving them their food. I take pride in cooking when we have the time, when I have the time, because we're busy. But all of these things are important for us to create our legacy and for my children to watch me do it, because I want my boys to choose a wife the correct way, and I want my daughter to understand what it is to be a wife, a submissive wife, a feminine wife, and also to not feel ashamed to be that way, especially in our community. So I just thank you for pushing to the narrative. I thank you for setting an example, and I'm watching and I'm enjoying it.
Thank you so much for your view. I appreciate that so much. And I'm sure that your sons, your boys are going to see what they're going to need in a woman by looking at you. Also, your daughter, you say you have a daughter? I'm sure she's
Yeah.
following you hand and foot. Keep her there, keep her by your side so she can watch and absorb all of that. That's
I'm
beautiful.
trying. We had a conversation with her tonight. Me and my husband took her to dinner, and we just asked her simple questions like, because it's important. I want my children to know. I want to know how they view us as their parents and how they view our marriage, and it's important that we're giving off the right example to them. And I want my children to want to be married. I want to have the type of marriage that they will want to be married by watching us, not to have the same marriage as us, but to be better. Um, and my husband is a great leader. He has always made wise choices for our family, and I trust him wholeheartedly. We were friends before we were married. I was 23 when I got married too, as well. I was young, and my husband was 25. So we went through the young married stage. But I wouldn't change a thing about marriage. And to anybody that's out there watching, marriage is one of the greatest things, one of the best decisions I've made. But it's important, like Bolo said, to know Choose wisely, choose your mate wisely, and always check yourself. Everything starts with self. If you checking yourself, then you'll be the right person for your mate, and vice versa. So just choose wisely.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone is hearing this. This is beautiful. We can, I don't know, there's something that I hear in women that have good leaders. You can just hear it in their voice, just the calmness, the air flowing through your body. Like you can just hear that a woman is taken care of. I feel like you can hear it when a woman is in a position where she has to be the leader and she's stressed. You can just hear the tension in the voice. Honestly, before you even said you were married, I knew you were married. As soon as you said hello, I was like, oh, look at this married woman. Because the voice is different. I'm sure the audience will agree. Maybe see the chat because I'm sure they're saying the same thing. You can hear the difference in the callers when you, just the other woman that called before you. She's also, I believe, 10 years married.
Yeah,
And
I
you
heard
see
her.
that she has a good leader and her voice was just so airy and calm and just, it's
Yes,
beautiful.
she spoke facts as well. So yeah, we push the narrative a lot. We host couples events. I host events with wives because I'm really trying to push in a community of wives, like to raise wives. That's important to me because I was
Right.
raised to be a wife, and so I just want to be an example, not just to my daughter, but to young women. Period. So I'm doing my part. You're doing your part, Ameera. Thank you.
Thank
To
you
the
so
Lapeef
much.
Network, thank you guys so much for all that you guys are doing. I'm one of you guys' avid listeners, and I enjoy you guys.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Crystal. I hope to see you
Thank you,
again
Ameera.
soon.
All right, bye bye.
Bye. Oh, yeah. Okay. See, I told you guys, even people are agreeing. You see, you guys can hear it too. I hear it. The voice is just so calm and nice. It's beautiful. Like you can tell even before they even say that they're married, you can tell that they're married. And one thing that she mentioned, she said like she has business hours that I think that's a really good thing for relationships as well, is like you have a certain time of the day where you guys do not talk business anymore, especially when you do business with your husband or wife. Me and my husband, we are in business together, but we don't have business hours because I love talking about money at any time of the day. I'm okay to talk about money. um but I agree that it is probably more healthy to have that system where you don't speak about certain things after a certain time of day. Another thing about marriage is not going to sleep angry at one another. Don't go to sleep angry at one another. Do what you must to get that calm spot right before you go to bed at night. Because I don't know why, but when you go to sleep angry at each other, it just creates this tension that you can feel it even in the morning. You just wake up angry still. So I recommend if you're married, just try not to go to sleep angry at one another. It really helps. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight in this nice meeting. This has been a long meeting. Our last live was only like 30 minutes, and this one is almost 2 hours. So thank you all for joining me tonight, and I hope that you enjoyed the conversation. I hope that you understood fully what my intentions were in speaking about this. And yeah, I think it was very nice. We have a super chat, one last super chat before we go. It's Turtle House. Hey, Turtle House. He says, this gives me hope in marriage again. Thank you, JR and Ameera. I appreciate you, Turtle House. Thank you so much. And I hope that we all keep our hope alive, because there has to be a better way to do this. There has to be a better way we can all get along together. And kumbaya. I'm just joking. But anyway, thank you all for joining me. And I think with that, I yield my time. See you guys.